I'm dressed negative. I'm dressed like a negative today. My dress that I wore is negative. It's all black and white. And what I'm wearing right now is all black and white. I'm going to show you. This is how stylish I look. Check this out. Check this out. All right, check this out. Looks pretty nice, huh? I got the pants. They got like a black and white grid going on. They're lined, by the way. They're lined. They got like a nice like polyester lining. And I got my nice black and white jacket. And then I got my nice black and white undershirt. I got three different contrasting black and whites, almost as if I got three different, what could you say, resolutions of radiography right now. Is it exciting? Does it remind you of what was going on in November of 2016? Does anybody remember that? When I did that dance? When I danced with Fidel Castro for the last time he ever danced? I didn't know that's what I was doing. It was a fantastic dance, by the way. And then after that, remember? The fire, the churning. There was a report sometime later that on that day there had been a recording of what was a gaseous ball. That's what it was, right? A gaseous ball that had broken loose from the sun and had broken the sun's orbit and was hurtling outward from the sun into space. She was gorgeous, wasn't she? She wasn't American, was she? She's from the sun. Hello? It's nothing like dancing in the center of the sun if you've ever been able to do it. The problem is once you've been able to do it, then somebody else thinks that they've got a copyright or a patent and a trademark. And then how does it get reflected to you years down the road? Some people have a better understanding of that blessing than others, huh? We're still dealing with it, aren't we? Let me get to the point. When I was a little girl, my father went to Japan. It was TAD, Tour of Active Duty. It was the first time he was away from the house for a very long time. Our understanding is he was going to be gone for a year. He might come back and visit, but he was gone for a year. My mom was going to be in charge of the house, and we were just supposed to go to school. It's no big deal. Well, at some point, things started changing. My dad left, and we had a dog. Her name was Annie. And one night, Annie got loose. And sometime after that, Annie was pregnant. I saw Annie. I would used to have these dreams at night that I was Annie running around. And what would happen is they would let Annie outside at night, and sometimes she would jump the fence. And I would go with Annie on her trips. Nobody believes this, but it actually happened. Sometime after that, she ended up pregnant. She had little baby puppies. She was an Irish setter, and apparently the black lab next door ended up making puppies with her. So we had puppies from Annie that were mostly red, but not all of them were red. Some were red and some were black. There was one little puppy, we named it Irish, and we kept that puppy. It had a little white mark right here in its head, literally, on what would have been the puppy's third eye. There was a little white mark. You know the ironic thing? It looked a lot like my birthmark. I have a birthmark on my leg. Right here on my leg. I'm not going to show it to you. I got it right here on my right leg, on my calf, the outer part of my calf. I got a birthmark, and it looked kind of like what was right there in the third eye of Irish's head. We had hamsters. We started off with 2, and then all of a sudden the hamsters got pregnant, and then we had like 25 hamsters. We had parakeets. Something happened, and my dad had to come back early from Japan. He had kind of changed. Something had happened. We didn't really know. We weren't like freaked out or anything. One day my dad took me in a ride in the car. We had to get rid of the hamsters. There were too many of them. I was in the passenger seat of the car with my dad. It was just me and my dad. And there was a box full of hamsters on my lap. And my dad would take the hamsters and he rolled down the window. And he threw them out the window and he said, "Be free." Now I was a little girl. I was kind of confused. I was like, are those hamsters going to die? Or is he going to throw them out the window and then they're going to get up and bounce up and then run and scurry off to the side of the road? I preferred to think the latter happened. You know, when my dad threw them out the window, that they actually got up and they ran off into the side of the road. And they're living in the wild now. Why did my dad do that? Couldn't he have just given the hamsters away to other people who wanted hamsters? Well, for whatever reason, at that point in time, that was not the option. And I was the one sitting in the passenger seat when my father did that. All of the puppies, they ended up being given away. I don't think we sold them. There was a certain amount of money that had to be paid for them to get vaccinated, just so you know. But we didn't sell the puppies. That wasn't the point. We put some information out there. If somebody wanted a puppy, it could come, and as long as they had done what they needed to do to make sure that the puppies had been vaccinated, they could have them. This is around the time that I was playing in this little yard down the street, and I was running around, and I stepped on a nail, and it went through my shoe, and it went through my foot. So I had to go to the hospital and get a tetanus shot. When my dad came home from Japan, he had some things, and I remember them. They were very colorful. He had this red silk jacket. There was a specific kind of red silk jacket that they had. It was kind of like an athletic jacket. Waist jacket, had the little elastic bands at the waist and the cuffs, and kind of a collar. It buttoned up the front, and it was silk, but it had this embroidered Marine Corps emblem on the back. It was really, really cool. It was really cool. My dad liked that jacket, but he had another jacket. He had it, but he never wore it. He just had it and he kept it. And it was black silk. And it had a yellow dragon on the back of the jacket and some Japanese letters. I didn't know what it meant. My dad never wore the jacket. And he never wanted us to wear it either. He never let me wear it. I think I put on the red jacket a couple of times. But the black jacket, he just had it. He didn't do anything with it. Or did he? He also bought a gift for me and my sister. My sister and I were each given these beautiful dolls with this very, very delicate, very white light, very white, almost luminescent skin. And they were in these long silk gowns. One of them had a kind of headdress. And her gown was in a particular style. The other had a sort of hairpiece, and her gown was in another style. And my dad, he came and he sat, and I remember we were sitting on the floor, and he showed the dolls to us, and he said, "This one's for you," meaning my sister, "and this one's for you." And we looked at him. I was like, wow. I said, "But you can't touch them. You can't have them now." "Why would you give us a doll?" And then he said, "You can't have them now. They're very delicate, and you have to wait until you're older. And we'll keep them, and when you're older, you can have them." I didn't understand. Now, I was not one that really was into dolls. Around the time that this happened, though, something else happened. It was almost before my dad got there. One day, I'm outside, and there's this tree outside right down from the garage. And all of a sudden, I'm going over and I see something, and it looks like a big camper, like a play camper, like a big trailer, like a camper. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I go, and it's right there in our yard. Somebody left it there. And inside of it, what was it? Well, it was all these Barbie dolls and all these clothes. I remember there was a little Barbie doll outfit with equestrian gear. It was like equestrian Barbie. And it had this hard hat, like the hat the equestrians wear. And I took my thumb to like feel the hat because it had this texture I'd never seen. And when I said, something happened. It made me nauseous. The texture of the hat that the equestrian Barbie was supposed to wear, it made me nauseous. I got physically nauseous just touching the texture of that hat. And it's stuck with me my entire life. There's something about that texture. It does something to me. It evokes a kind of memory. I had no idea what it was at the time. But I also know I didn't like Barbies. My sister liked Barbies. I wasn't into Barbies. That's not the kind of thing I was into. We had this grill. It was a kind of gas grill, but it was different than anything I've ever seen. See, it had a bowl, and then it had a long tube, and it had these things that opened in the tube, and you had to dig. You had to take a special shovel that was circular. You had to dig the hole down a very considerable amount. And you had to put the grill in the ground. And then you had to take the dirt and compact around the grill. Some people poured cement in order to consolidate it. They poured cement in the hole before they put the grill there to make sure it was stable. This is very different than the grills you see, the propane grills on the wheels, the ones that just have the metal legs that you can move and transport easily. This was not ever meant to be moved. It was a permanent grill right out in the backyard, right outside the door. See, I was more interested in that. I don't even know why. It might have to do with ceramics. My mother she collected knickknacks. At a certain period of time, she developed a fascination for salt and pepper shakers that were made in occupied Japan. There were all these flea markets around where we lived. She would always go to the flea market. Every Saturday morning, we'd go to the flea market. And she was specifically looking for any salt and pepper shakers that were from occupied Japan. She also had a thing for planters, flower pots that were made by this company called McCoy. My understanding is McCoy was an American company that was reputed to have a very significant reputation about a certain kind of arts and crafts. Anytime she saw a McCoy planter, she purchased it. There were specific designs that were very common. Some of them she had 3, maybe even 4 versions of the same planter, but every time she saw it, she purchased it. She also purchased every time she saw the knickknacks, the salt and pepper shakers from occupied Japan. Some of them were fascinating. Some of them were very, very sophisticated. They had all these different caricatures. When we had to move from that base to another base, we had these boxes that were 5 feet tall. There were at least 5 boxes that were 5 feet tall, packed with nothing but those salt and pepper shakers. They each had to be individually wrapped in packing paper and put into the box. I remember how many of them there were. And when we ended up moving to the new place, I asked my mom if she was going to take them out, and she said, "No, I'm sorry. You know, what happened?" And then my dad told me, "Well, some of the boxes got crushed in the move." What? We don't have all those boxes. They had to make an inventory once we had moved of what had gotten destroyed. She was able to keep 3 of them. You know that? 3 of them made it, but 2 of them had some sort of accident in the transport and were destroyed. So she wasn't able to keep those. I never got those dolls. When I left my family the day after I graduated high school to go to college. Anything that was mine that they had, they didn't have anymore when I went back. But at some point, about a few years later, before I tried to travel outside of the country for the first time, I went to visit my parents. They didn't really have anything that was mine from when I was a kid anymore. But my mom told me she had all these gifts to give me. She had them stacked up, jewelry. For some reason, though, even when she started later acquiring other ceramics, including a particular ceramics line that's very specific to the United States during the New Deal period, by the way. Well, those ceramics weren't available for me. Those weren't the kinds of gifts she was going to give me. I don't really know exactly what kind of gifts my mother wanted to give me. The only thing she gave me before I left was a set of earrings and a necklace with a claddagh on it that had an emerald. It's the only gift she was able to give me. I'm very very disappointed. My mother had all of those things. Were they meant to be returned to Japan? Were they meant to be returned to Japan specifically and especially? I never touched the doll. My father wouldn't let me.